The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of bad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too evil and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Podcast coming to you June 25th, 2025. Back here, my guys, Chris Lacy in the middle, Matthew Allen on the right. Fellas, what's going on?
Not much, man. Not much. Rest in peace, Mike.
Yes, indeed. Rest in peace
16
to the
years
king.
today. Yeah, I'm and before we get started with that, I'm again doing a bare bones episode here without a laptop, without my studio stuff. That'll end tomorrow. My laptop will be in here tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow morning. Hopefully for my next show I do. So, anyway, fellas, how you guys doing? How's your summer so far?
Summer's been good. Happy, healthy, and employed. No complaints over here, man. No complaints.
Your hair looks good. Your hair looks really good, by the way.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah.
You have that Jackson's curl going there, you know what I'm saying?
A little bit. It's kind of hard to argue against your girlfriend when she says, "Hey, I need the curls back." I'm like, all right, cool.
Yo, by the way, tell your girlfriend to stay on grown folks conversations.
I will.
Trying to text me over like, me and Chris talking. Leave me alone. Me and Chris talking.
Will.
All right?
That was all her, man. Like with the shenanigans of the group text, like that's all her. Bro.
And I knew right away. You said 9:36. Like 9:36. What the hell are you talking about? 9:36. Making no damn sense. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. We love you, Christy. Right. You know that. So anyway, so like obviously today is the 60th anniversary of Michael Jackson's passing. We have you guys here to talk about mostly about the this year is also the 30th anniversary of the History album release, which actually came out on June 20th of 1995. Mm-hmm. And well, you guys wrote some really fantastic articles. I want to go over that in a second. But first, let's go back to 16 years ago. Long time. I was 29 years old at the time. Where do you guys remember where you guys were when the word came down about Michael being in the hospital and then in passing? Do you guys remember where you guys were? What you're doing?
Yeah. Matt, you go first, man.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember it like it was yesterday, to be perfectly honest. I was at my former job at the BCAT, now Brooklyn Free Speech TV. And I was sitting at my desk and my coworker Tyrone had called me like, man, Michael Jackson said that they said he had some chest pains. He's in the hospital and he got off the phone with me. I'm like, damn, like he's working himself too hard for these rehearsals. I hope he's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Not even 30 seconds later, I get a call. It's Tyrone again. He goes, bad news, man. And I said, nope, I don't think so. Quick, because I knew exactly what.
Dang.
I hung up on him because I'm like, I know exactly what you're gonna say. He's like, nope, sorry, not today. Click. And then down the hall, I could hear people like, what? Are you kidding me? No. I'm like, no, this can't be. Then TMZ reported it. I'm like, patooey to TMZ. I don't care if you're right. I'm never in my life gonna give them the credit. So I got up from my desk and I started walking. I just left work. I started walking home. And at the time I lived at Eversfield Apartments, which is because I worked at downtown Brooklyn. My apartment was in Crown Heights. So I walked all the way up Flatbush Avenue to Grand Army Plaza, past the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens, to my apartment. My phone is ringing off the hook. I'm getting text messages left and right from people I haven't spoken to in years. And I'm ignoring it. I get inside of my apartment. I turn on the TV. And when your TV turns on, sometimes you hear the audio before when it's still black.
Yeah, I remember those.
I remember that.
And sure enough, it was one of those like insurance commercials that used the Jackson 5 as theme music.
Wow.
So it turned on, and the first thing I heard was, "You and I must make a pact." I'm like, "Oh my God, it's true, isn't it?" And it was the insurance commercial. And then I changed it to CNN, and across the screen, it confirmed that he was gone. And it was just nuts. My girlfriend at the time came home, rushed home, because she thought I was in the fetal position, sobbing. And I wasn't. I was just very numb. I was numb for months. And then one day I took the train to BCAT, and I was listening to Mike, and it was Everybody Somebody's Fool from the Ben album. And I started weeping on the train, on the Q train. It was just nuts. I couldn't believe it. I actually thought I was gonna wake up the next day and it was gonna all be a hoax, but sadly, it was not.
Yeah. Wow. What about you, Chris? What was your whereabouts on 25th of June in 2009?
Yeah. I was 19 years old, freshman in college. Just started my new job at Domino's Pizza, being a delivery driver. And I was, I had my phone in my pocket on vibrate. I keep hearing it, like, I feel it going off on my phone, like, zzz, zzz, like nonstop, right? And I'm like, man, I ain't trying to get fired on my first day. I just can't. I'm 19. I'm teaching dance classes, on my free time and going to school. Like, I cannot afford to lose this job. And wrap up work, and I went outside, immediately checked my phone, and like you, Matthew, like I'm getting missed calls and text messages from people I haven't talked to in years. But at the time when I was looking at my flip phone, I saw I had the most missed calls from my mom, and everybody knows, like, you see that is like,
you think something else.
You need to stop what you're doing. So I call, and my sister picks up. And keep in mind, she's 18 months younger than me, and I drove her nuts for like a good 4 years of just straight up listening to Michael Jackson nonstop. So she can't stand Mike. She picks up my mom's phone, answers, and said, "Did you hear Michael Jackson?" I'm like, "Alyssa, don't play with me." Like, I'm thinking she's joking. And she's like, "No, it's all over the news." And I start looking. I'm like, "All right, well, I'm on my way home. I'll be there in a few minutes." So I get off the phone with her. I start going through my text messages, and I'm seeing the same thing. Like, Mike or Chris, like, "Did you hear that Mike died? Did you hear that Mike died?" And then the first thing I did, I drove home in silence, and the first song I played was Earth's Song. And I'm like, thug tears were shed that day.
Damn.
You know what I'm saying? And I was just, I couldn't find the words or anything. It was just like, Earth Song was like the perfect soundtrack, I think, for everybody. Like, it felt like the world just like it almost fell off its axis that day.
It was last night performed before he passed away in the rehearsals.
Exactly, which was so crazy because I didn't even know that. Didn't even know that at the time. So for that to be the first song that I go to, and that's the last song that he rehearsed, like I can't make that up.
Safe to say, you guys were both huge fans already before he passed away. Like, it wasn't like you became a fan after the fact. Like, you were already invested.
Lifelong.
Knee deep in it.
All three of us work. I mean, like I said, I'm 45. I go 4-3 years deep. So, for me, I was going to work actually that evening, and I got a not a text. I tend to watch the news a lot. But before I left to work, I had saw a report that he was in the hospital for cardiac arrest, and I was like, "Oh crap, damn, this is crazy." Because I remember having a conversation with my now wife, girlfriend at the time. We were playing History in the car. We were playing the History album in the car just randomly, and she's like, "Man, Michael's so great." Oh my God. I go, "Yeah." And I told her, I remember saying 3 years before he died, he goes, "It's gonna take him dying for people to really appreciate this dude." Honestly, not thinking that 3 years later, that's gonna happen. I get to work. Now I work in the same place today as I did years ago. Working in a poker room, so we have like 30 TVs in around there, and the news stuff's coming in about him being in the hospital, being they didn't confirm his death yet at the time, but it was something pick up, and the room was like hundreds of people in the room. First off, then they announced that he passed away, and the entire room was in shock. You know, and meanwhile, people are texting me left and right. Oh my God, calling me, texting me. There's some fans who are in California at Staples Center who were actually trying to, you know, see Michael in those days rehearsing, texting me and like telling me what's going on. Someone would tell me that he looked frail those last few days before he passed away. And it was very surreal. I'm gonna be honest with you. Do you know what the first thing that happened to me when I found out he passed away?
No
how
idea.
I felt? I felt relief.
Wow.
Let me tell you why. Because, and again, we all been fans for years, for decades, over a generation. For me, it was more so we went through the ringers of the trial and all the stuff for those previous 10 years prior to his passing.
Right.
So I felt a sort of pain for this guy at this point. Like I remember the day of the verdict when he read not guilty, you know, 10 times with the four misdemeanors. I remember saying, I don't care if you put out another music. Just go home. You're rich. Go be with your kids and just live your life. Fuck what we think. Fuck the fans. Just do you right now. And to me, that my thing was, I was more invested in Michael, the person, at that point, than I was about the artist. Even in those 4 years coming up before he passed away. So for me, it was about the humanity of Michael Jackson first that stood out more than the music. The music always spoke for itself, no matter what. Yeah, it was the humanity that spoke for him. And you know, I remember the one thing I remember vividly the most. I have a friend, Tara, who I still talk to. She's married to one of my good friends, Angel, a musician friend of mine. And she had posted something like that earlier that day, said that Farrah Fawcett died. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
Facebook. And then I remember the one thing that really stuck out to me, and to this day it still stands out, is that she put another thing that came out when Michael had passed away. It said to the I don't know if I say verbatim. He goes, Farrah Fawcett, you've been replaced, or you've been I don't remember the words he used. Farrah Fawcett, you've been upstaged, if you call it, because you know, as big as Farrah Fawcett is, Michael Jackson passed away is a cultural movement, a cultural moment, not just music, just in culture in general. And we know there are very few artists that have really meant something to music and to culture as a whole. Very few. I count on one hand. He's in that. In that. So I knew when this came out, the relief I felt. I remember seeing people started like, oh my God, I love his music. And I was sad, yes, but I was also very angry because everybody all of a sudden now trying to wax poetic how much they loved him. And I'm like, motherfucker, you set your, like, literally 2 years ago told me this guy was a pedophile. Go fuck yourself. Get out of my face. Yeah. So
you weren't shooting with him in the gym.
Right. So I was dealing with that too also. And because to me, Michael's personal for me.
Yeah.
Like, he is my number one artist of all time. My number one.
Same.
You know, so I didn't cry. I didn't cry until the next day. To me, it didn't hit me until the next day when they started the autopsy and all this crap. And then that's when it hit me, really in a big way the next day. I also didn't cry really until the funeral.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a lot of, that my big brother said that's what broke him, was when Paris started talking at the very end. Yeah. I saw some of the most cynical people at my job literally like told me to leave I was in the green room watching it with one of the camera operators I worked with, and he's like, yo, you got to get out. And he started sobbing. I'm like one of the most cynical people I knew, and he just started to cry. This is when Usher was saying "Gone Too Soon."
Gone too soon. Oh,
yeah. And
that wrecked me.
Yeah. So for me, it was like I said, I didn't cry till months later. But to me, the hardest part was watching Stevie sing "Never Dreamed You'd Leave in Summer" and "They Won't Go and I Go," and it's just like I felt bad because like Stevie is like. That was like Stevie was a big mentor for Michael, and they were good friends. And Stevie's like how many people are Stevie gonna outlive? You know what I'm saying? Like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's just I felt bad for him in that moment, and it got even worse at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 25th anniversary show.
Yes.
When he's performing a tribute to Michael, and his set "The Way You Make Me Feel." And he started to cry after the second verse, and that was
that's so that's even today. So
really hard. Yeah, but
yeah, I was very angry. Like I watched the entire like memorial like weeks later. It was 2 weeks later, which was July 7th, 2009. And I was just very angry through the entire thing. Like you're seeing people like Brooke Shields, like, okay, I get it, you're friends with back in the day, but you weren't there. I mean, to me, it was different for me because I was, the investment was there even through the roughest times. I was probably more dedicated through those times than it was during the times when it was, Q rating was through the roof. You know what I'm saying? So it's different. It hits different when you go through that. The people that you thought were not even involved in his life and didn't really care or didn't support him or publicly support him, all of a sudden now they want to get their face in the cameras now because I love them. But stop.
Yeah,
you're full of shit. Stop. I'm sorry. It's fake as hell. And
EJ, no, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, right. So that to me, it wasn't till Paris said what she said, because at the end of the day, it was about humanizing Michael Jackson. She was the only person that was able to do that in a way that was real. Because, I think Kobe Bryant can say what he says. The Magic Johnson has stories about KFC chicken and all that stuff, but we never got to hear the father, Michael Jackson, father, and his kids, because at that point they never were seen publicly until that moment. So seeing Paris humanize Michael, it hits so different in ways that nobody else can have done that. Nobody else but her or those other two of the kids. Yeah. So go ahead, Chris. You want to say?
Yeah. Two points that you brought up. I wanted to come back to Farrah Fawcett for a second. You were absolutely right. Like, if it were any other day, she would dominate June 25th.
Yes.
Because, she was massive from Charlie's Angels. I've heard stories of guys like they had posters of her on their wall, like all the things. So just
on the ceiling.
Yeah, on the ceiling. Like they're on their bed just looking up at the ceiling, seeing Farrah Fawcett from Charlie's Angels. So, and so I agree with you. Like on any other day, that would have been her day, but because it fell on the same day as Mike passing away, like that, it just hits different. And to your bigger point, I saw that too. There were a lot of people that for years didn't have one nice thing to say about Michael, and then all of a sudden they come out the woodworks with, he's the greatest, and I've got all his albums. I'm like, well, keep that same energy. Like, where was that?
Yeah,
in 2005.
There's a reporter that I won't say his name.
I know you're talking about.
Can I say
it? Initials are MB, is it?
Is it over a T or no?
Or maybe you're thinking somebody else.
Yeah, I will neither confirm nor deny either, but he had some terrible things to say about him during his lifetime, and then to be interviewed about him and write articles about him or whatever. Like, in retrospect, I'm like, dude, like, come on. Like, how are you gonna, keep, it's like you said, Chris, keep the same energy. Yeah. I mean, like, people who talk bad about Mike, I don't ever want to hear them talk about him objectively. I don't want to hear them talk objectively about his music. If you had terrible things to say about him, I'm not interested in your opinion about why Bad is a better album. But no,
keep that same energy, dude.
No, because if I have a bias against a musician, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna talk about their music, because it's just like, no, I can't be objective. I'm not going to do that. That's like, I have no integrity if I do that. You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people who took money going to seminars and talking about him and then talked crap about him before and after. I'm like, no, I'm not. So that really irritated me. But another thing that, to jump on what you said, EJ, about being relieved, was a few days later, when Billboard had printed the autopsy and report, and it proved once and for all that Michael did indeed have vitiligo.
Yes.
And not only that, but he also suffered from lupus. Yeah. And I'm like, see, it's like all you people that said he bleached his skin and all that, jump on this and spin. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Matthew, I'm glad you brought that up, because some people know this, not a lot of people do, but I've had vitiligo since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
So to hear people say like, oh, Michael bleached his skin, I'm like, no, like this is a skin condition that is passed down generation by generation. And you literally wake up every day and you notice something different. And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you could try to change your diet and exercise and get enough rest and all the things, but your skin's going to do what it's going to do. So, that's like the closest thing that I could probably, connect with, with Mike on that level.
Wow.
So,
I didn't realize like it was that bad with you. Like I knew you had it, but I didn't think it was that bad. It's the first time seeing your hands actually.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be like non-existent, and then just over time, it continues to spread.
But do you share the opinion? And this is not being critical of Michael at all. But I'm going to ask you guys this, because we had saw for years that look, I was a kid when his skin started changing. I was still like between ages of 7 and 13. Could Michael have done some more goodwill if he had said something earlier than before Oprah?
No, I agree. I think in hindsight, it would have been better if he would have spoken up, like once it became unavoidable that his skin had gotten light. So once like around the Bad album, if he would have said something then and said, yeah, I just so you guys know, I have this skin disease. This is why my skin is light. Because one of my heroes and a guy that really mentored me from afar, was the late great Greg Tate. And
I know that name.
Greg Tate's one of the best hip hop writers, advocates for the Black Rock Coalition.
Okay.
An excellent guy who went out of his way to help me. He wrote for Vibe magazine. He wrote for the Village Voice and everything. But he wrote the most scathing, most hurtful thing about Michael when the Bad album came out. And it had a lot to do with the fact that his skin color was changing. And I was just like appalled by how someone could say something so egregiously hurtful. So I feel like, and but the thing was, he wasn't the only one that thought that way. So I'm like,
right.
I wish that he would have just spoken up and said, hey, there's a reason why this is going on. I have this skin disease. This is the reason why my skin is getting lighter, or whatever. So I think you're absolutely right. I wish he would have said something much sooner.
Yeah, I think it would have been ideal, between We Are the World and Captain EO. Had he said something then and got ahead of it, it probably would have been the best thing. Do I think the world would have taken it easy on him? Absolutely not. If anything, they probably would have thrown more darts his way.
Yeah.
But for him to,
but I would have gone. I think it would have done some goodwill at least to ease off.
At least they would have thrown darts over something that was true.
Right.
Instead of just like 20, 30 years of skin. Like I literally, even to this day, have to correct people. Like the other day, they did a post of the Thriller 40 documentary where Michael was talking about like how videos are terrible. And a guy had posted on IG in comments like, man, I wish you didn't wear so much makeup. It makes him look so effeminate. And I had to correct him. I'm like, listen, number one, at that time, Michael was still suffering from acne pretty badly, even at that point. Number two, he's not wearing makeup like the rosy cheeks. That's a symptom of his lupus. So what you think is makeup is actually not discoloration in this.
The ignorance, unfortunately, people who don't know better and just assume as such. I've said many times over on these podcasts we do together. The one thing that's helped Michael today, obviously in passing, is the information age has helped him, because back in 93 and 03, we didn't have the pushback, the way to push back on the media. Whatever the media fed us was either you took it or leave it. You took it or leave it. Right. So if MSNBC said this is what happened, and you took the information and you can run with it, or you cannot believe it. At least now, in hindsight, there's more pushback. People are more skeptical of the media in general because they don't trust them, good or bad. So that has helped Michael Jackson in a lot of ways with all these things, whether it's vitiligo, whether it's the child abuse allegations, whether it's anything that matter. It's at least an opportunity now to fight back. Say, hey, wait a second, that's not really true, actually. Blah, 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 blah. So that's helped him, really, be honest with you. But you know, it's incredible. We're 16 years now removed, and it's like he never left in a sense, though. Even though we know he's gone, but the presence is still there because the music's everywhere.
Yeah,
like his music now is played more now than it was probably in 2005.
Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
Which
I would
is
agree
crazy
with
to
that.
think about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I hear Michael Jackson songs a lot more often now than I did, you know, closer to his death. So
Yeah.
to say that his legacy is definitely, you know, it's gone through a lot, and I mean that's why I love this genre more than anything else, because like, you know, you have the Beatles and Elvis, and I know Elvis had his pushback to some degree, but no one, I don't think any celebrities had the amount of pushback worldwide that Michael faced. The challenge
Absolutely,
he faced,
yeah.
from child to death.
Yeah.
From childhood to death. You know,
yeah, his level of fame is what killed him.
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
And
I always say fame is the most elusive and effective serial killer.
Yeah, you do say that. You do say that.
Yeah.
Like his way, you know, way Joseph, his father treated him. That's the way his father parented him will be considered child abuse today. Like literally, it's been talked about by people who are experts in that field. They say if Michael Jackson was treated the way he was today, Joe will be arrested for the stuff he's doing.
Yeah, they would get Joe out of here.
So
no question.
And I'm not blaming. Like, yes, I'm blaming Joe, but I'm not blaming Joe also because he's a product of his time. We got that. But you know, it is a lesson too, also for us. To, you know, like say, the grass is always greener. You know, biggest star in the world. Yes, so many records, but look what it came with. Came with a cost. So, but I don't want to spend too much more time on that. You guys, as I said earlier, you guys this year's 30th anniversary of the History album, which came out in 1995, of course, June 20th. You guys wrote some phenomenal pieces on the record.
Thank you, man.
I know. Thanks. So the way I see it is that Chris, you wrote a more of a track by track breakdown.
Yeah. And
gave each track some room to breathe and kind of like gave each expression on the track. Matt, you took a bigger overview of the albums at large and the impact culturally. Why did you guys write these articles? What inspired you to write these 3 articles?
Yeah, Matthew, I'll defer to you, man, out of respect.
Okay, so for me, I had been working. I had that working title back for the 25th anniversary. You know, so the whole as Jack as it sounds, you know, history proves Michael Jackson right 30 years later. I had that for my old WordPress blog. I was going to do a piece on the 25th anniversary, and it just never came to fruition. So I resurrected it for this year,
right?
For the 30th, because I always felt like history didn't get its just due in terms of like it's like retrospectively. When I was in college, I was my sophomore year at college when Invincible came out. And all of the thing, I read so many articles leading up to it saying Invincible is the follow-up to Michael Jackson's 1991 album Dangerous. And I'm like, no the hell it's not. Like, stop saying that History is just the greatest hits package. No. History was a whole ass album of 15 songs.
Yeah.
An album that sold 8 million copies in the US, an album that was nominated for Album of the Year at the 1996 Grammys, with Scream getting 12 nominations for at the MTV Video Music Awards, you know, getting the Grammy for Best Short Form Music Video. You know, it's just like, come on, stop. Like, You Are Not Alone, written by RnB Voldemort, was the first song ever to debut at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Right. So it's like, how are you gonna just act like a whole ass album didn't happen? You know what I'm saying? But it has a lot to do with the subject matter too, I think, you know? And I'm really, really wanted to just make people understand History I saw it as a concept album. And I wanted people to understand why it was a concept album. and why, and also because I kept hearing people refer to songs from history on the timeline in social media with a lot more over time. And they're quoting "They Don't Care About Us" a lot on Twitter. They're quoting Earth Song a lot, Scream, and all that stuff. Tabloid Junkie, the people doing video essays on it. I'm like, see, this is what Michael meant when he was interviewed by Ebony Magazine in 1992, and he says, "I want people to dissect my music years down the line." This is what he meant by that. So I felt like, yo, Michael really predicted this whole idea of, this is what happens when you have a 24-hour news cycle. This is what happens when you have fake news. And then I really started to really analyze, like, the powers that be were really trying to use fake news, trying to use celebrity worship and celebrity fodder to sort of lull people to sleep, and also just so they can line their pockets and people can forget about the atrocities that are happening all over the world. You know what I'm saying? Like a great metaphor for that is the fact that in the bridge of Scream, when Jan is saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe what I saw as I turned on the TV," there's an announcer that's talking about a Black man who was killed on the news, and you can faintly hear it.
Yep.
That's a great analogy of the point that I'm trying to make. It's the fact that, underneath all of the noise and stuff, all this real stuff is happening. That's why you have so many songs like "They Don't Care About Us," like "Too Bad," like Earth Song that talks about these, and Scream that talk about the stuff going on in the real world. But people don't know about it because you have songs like Tabloid Junkie talking about things that shouldn't be going on. And then, of course, talking about exploitation of people and songs like Money, songs like This Time Around. And yes, a lot of it had to do with the Chandlers, but it still was an allegory for the media and for politicians too. And I just wanted to make sure people understand, like, this is a quality album. It's an important album, even if you don't love it musically. It's maybe the most important album that Michael had to do during his adult life. And I wanted to make sure that I made a definitive statement about it.
Do you remember no, Matt, you and I are a little closer to age though, but it's all of us here. Do you guys remember the lead into this album, the promotion?
Absolutely.
That was so much fun.
I do.
I loved the at the time I really liked the history teaser, with the Russian military and the statue and everything. In hindsight, knowing what I know now, it's even better. Just the way that he was trolling the media, and I was like, yeah, that's the point. That's why he said in Dying Sawyer, "You fell into my trap."
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like I wanted you to think that I was, like feeling myself. I wanted you to think that I was believing my own hype, which he was. I mean, people can talk about Kanye West and all that stuff. Nobody believed their own hype more than Michael Jackson. That's just a fact. So, but at the same time, there was a sense of there was a buried sense of irony and self-awareness that's in the teaser trailer, especially with the statue and everything and the kids fainting and all that stuff and the helicopters. I loved the Scream video, being the first single. I remember getting the cassette single with Childhood on the B-side.
I knew that too. Also, I bought it at Sam Goody?
Sam's, yeah.
Yeah, mine was Sam Goody.
Yeah. So I remember I got home from school because this is back in the 90s. So this is when music came out on a Tuesday. But music used to come out on Tuesdays, not on Fridays. And so I came home and my mom held the double disc up when I got to the house because she knew that I wanted it. And I'm like, yeah. And she loved the album.
I couldn't afford it. So I ended up getting the album from a friend on the cassette tape, recording.
Yeah.
So
yeah. My mom used to jiggle to Money. That was her song. She loved Money. That was her that was her jam. She would just do her little shoulder sway all the time every time that song would come on. Yeah.
No, the promotion was cool because I remember when he got the word the album was coming out. I remember, one of the few times I had cable back then, at MTV. So you had the lead up, the scream, the making the video and all that stuff, and then you had the interview with Diane Sawyer, and that was the only time you could ever get me to watch an NBA game because that was played. The interview was the same exact night as Game 4 of the '95 Finals between the Magic and the Rockets, and it was on the same time. And that was the only time I was a hardcore basketball guy back then. That's the only thing you can get me to get off watching basketball was Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Hakeem and Shaq, I don't give a damn. Mike's here. Sorry. So I watched that interview live instead of watching the game, but I love the promotion for this album. I love the way it was very pomp and circumstance, and it was kind of a FU to the world. It was a troll. It was a literal troll. It was taking attention away from what we were talking about for the previous 2 years. So I get why people didn't like it. Some people who were offended by it, I get it. Most of them are very small-minded, of course. In hindsight, I think it's aged well in hindsight. To be honest with you, the promotion.
Yeah,
I think that was the point.
I would agree with you. And EJ, real quick, I had a question for Matthew.
Go ahead.
Going back to his article for a moment. Again, super dope article, man. And I mean that's to be expected. I've been keeping up with your work for years.
And for the listeners, we're going to have both of your articles in the show notes. So when it's out,
So question for you, Matthew. What was the most challenging part about tackling history now compared to, like you said, you were initially going to do it for History 25, but then you decided to hold on to it. It's like, what were some things of this is the most challenging part about trying to figure out where everything needs to go? Like, I'm just curious about your process there.
I just, knowing, it's always, when you know so much or you learn so much, it's knowing what to keep in and what not to include. That's probably even though it's on my Substack, I can have it be as long as I want to. But at the same time, I know that, I still need to be as concise as possible and I need to get to the point a little faster. And so I just felt okay, there's if I just go all out and do whatever, who knows if anyone's going to read this whole thing, because I'm not naive to think that people are going to read the whole thing if it's 2,000, 3,000 words, but even if I wanted it to be that way, but so that was probably the biggest challenge, because there were things I wanted to talk about the fact that, Jam and Lewis used breaking glass as snare drums on Scream. I thought that was the dopest shit ever. And I only noticed it 2 months ago. I was I can't believe, it's kind of like when Pharrell and Chad used the sound of spray cans as rock. It dropped like it's high as a ride cymbal. I thought that was it was just like that. So leaving that out was really because I'm talking really more about the subject matter than I am the music in and of itself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was trying to balance and talk about, the music still is great. The fact that Jam and Lewis used Michael's beatboxing as the foundation of the rhythm arrangement on Too Bad and on Tabloid Junkie.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most challenging stuff. And just quick sidebar, I was so disappointed that this was the only time that Michael worked with Jam and Lewis. I really think they were onto something really special with them during this era, not just with history with
Is it scary?
Blood. Is it scary with the blood on the dance floor?
Man, top 5 song for me.
Yeah, I really, really think that they were onto something really special.
Do you guys? So obviously, Michael's process for Off the Wall, for Thriller, for Bad, and even somewhat Dangerous is having one producer funnel everything to one producer, and that'll be it. I think this is the first time he did the whole I have producers for this song, that song. Did you prefer that way? Did you prefer the way he did with Quincy and then with Teddy and on Dangerous?
Man, that's such a tough question.
Can we hold that thought just for a second? I need to switch to my laptop. So
just
give me Just give me a few minutes and
we can pause real quick anyway. We can pause real quick.
Yeah, let's.
All right, we're back. We're talking about process actually of Michael Jackson's process in terms of production. Do you prefer the way he did it with Quincy, one producer, following out the entire project, or do you like the way he did it with on History and even Invincible, where you have like multiple producers doing multiple songs and just he's the main guy behind across the entire thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to me, it really comes down to, I guess, what the listener's expecting. If you want more of a unified sound, then you're likely to cater more towards the Quincy Jones projects, even though there is some diversity there. But if you are looking for, I guess, more diversity, then you're going to see that from, in Dangerous, History, and then definitely Invincible. To me, that's his most diverse project, probably to a fault, but I don't know. It's weird for me. Like if I had to pick one, I would likely say I prefer the more diverse project. So I probably lean more towards Dangerous, a record like that, even though Bad is my favorite record.
So
probably
Teddy Riley, Teddy Riley did the majority of the album or the entire album?
Half.
He did half of the album. Yeah. Then Bill Bottrell did he did a few songs, and then Bruce Swedien produced a couple songs as well. So but yeah, Teddy Riley produced half of it.
So that's one of the reasons why I feel like I like History better than Dangerous, is because of the fact that Teddy did the first 6 songs, then the next 7 songs was Michael and Bill Bottrell, and then the last song is Dangerous. I felt like there was an unevenness that was a part of the Dangerous albums from a sonic standpoint that just made it sort of harsh. Like going from Can't Let Her Get Away straight to Heal the World was like a very stark transition, and then to go into Black and White and all this other stuff, and then Gone Too Soon, and then to end with this New Jack Swing song with Dangerous, was kind of a stark thing. I would have much rather Teddy just did every song on Dangerous, even if like a Black or White or whatever, just for continuity, production continuity. But and that's why I think History is better, because juxtaposing people like Jammin' Lewis and Dallas Austin together, who that makes a little bit more sense from a curation standpoint. And then and then plus Michael was at the helm of the production for everything for the most part. So songs like, even with songs like Too Bad and songs like Tabloid Junkie and History, he's still very much in the driver's seat in terms of the producing, even though it's Dallas and Jammin' Lewis and
Teddy a little bit.
And Teddy, Teddy not so much on History, but like Renee Moore and Bruce Swedien and stuff like that. Right. So if you can curate it, I think this is the best example of the curation of different producers on one album to make most sonic sense, because the 2 albums in between that book ended in Dangerous and Invincible, it doesn't do that quite as well. Right.
And that was the reason why my approach with the article, I felt like I needed to do a track by track analysis, because really my process in any project that I write is that if I want to read something that nobody's written yet, then it's on me to write it. That lets me know that that's, my mind is where it needs to be. And then as far as like why I took the approach that I did, this is probably my longest piece I've ever done, is that on the one hand, you have the mainstream publications that they tend to focus more on the allegations and the public persona. But then on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have some fans, not all, but some fans that act as if Michael lived this perfect, sinless life. So I'm like, okay, I need to find the truth somewhere in the middle. And how can I do that in a way that I'm painting pictures in your mind and taking you on this journey and, making you feel and experience the music maybe in a way that you haven't thought of. So that to me is what made the approach necessary. But to a point that you made, Matthew, even though this was my longest piece I've done, I pushed myself to make every word, sentence, and paragraph serve a purpose.
And that's what I got out of your article too, because like it was so, because the way you wrote it, was not the standard. Like Matthews was written more like in a traditional a column review, which I love for the record. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yours written more in a more emotional sense, more like direct.
Yes.
Every word felt important in a way where like you're trying to explain every piece of the art that he was presenting out there. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't
exactly.
It wasn't the more. It was lesser the standard review big picture thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And each song, and that's why I love the difference in your both articles, because you both gave me same perspective but different ways and present different forms. But you got to the same goal of presenting the importance of this album and what it meant.
Right.
That's why I loved it. That's why I'm glad you guys did this separately and did this in different ways. That's why I loved it.
Yeah. And to your point, EJ, is like, that spectrum I was talking about, like you have the mainstream publications that are just so focused on the negative, and then you have the fans that are so focused on the uber positive.
Right.
They both don't realize they're dehumanizing Michael in both approaches.
Yep.
Like you're deifying Michael as if he's a god, which he isn't. He's a flesh and blood human being that, had insecurities and faults just like the rest of us. But then you have the other side of it. They demonize him as if he's, the second coming of Satan.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, what can I do to humanize Michael? And I just try to do my best to make every word, sentence, and paragraph humanize him so people can understand, like, oh, this is why he responded this way. And, going through what he went through and fighting back the best way he knew how, which was through his music.
He's a fascinating guy. I think.
Yeah.
Again, I think one of the reasons why people are so, what has helped his legacy to also years beyond now, obviously being gone 16 years, is the fact that just him, whether you love him or hate him, just his life in general is just interesting.
Absolutely.
It's just interesting. And this forget if I'm a fan or not. He's an interesting personality in general. Why does he think that way? Why does he look that way? Why is he dressed that way?
Mm-hmm.
So you're already sucked in some regard. And whether or not you choose to embrace him in a positive way or you reject him and like, it's just too weird. He's so interesting. And I think this is the one album he did, I think, more than any, that kind of exposed that to also, where like, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I think. This is what I feel. And no other album he has on his discography has that at all. He may have songs here and there.
You don't feel the way about Dangerous?
No, history is much more bare bones in terms of personal.
Yeah, I would agree.
Bare bones.
I think that Dangerous alluded to the social commentary that he would do on Dangerous, but in terms of the personal anecdotes, that didn't show up until History. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with a young lady not too long ago who's going to be wants to do a dissertation on History and Blah on the Dance Floor.
Ooh.
And
interesting.
And she mentioned that History was the first time that Michael got really serious or got really personal about his personal life and his lyrics since the Jackson's Destiny album.
Oh wow! I don't.
You know,
I don't know if I agree with that.
In a wide scope,
like just talking about like just bare bones in terms of like his personal life. You know what I'm saying? Yes, there are things that he culled from his personal life that made it to his records, like a Wanna Be Starting Something, like a Billie Jean. But in terms of like how he's feeling internally, like you think of songs like Bless His Soul, songs like You Push Me Away, songs like That's What You Get for Being Polite.
I tend to see what you're saying there in terms of the quantity of songs that gave that. Whereas obviously History is like that on steroids, but you got a couple songs that showed you that little bit of that side. You know, That's What You Get for Being Polite, Bless His Soul, the song Destiny itself. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I get where I can't remember if you said the woman's name or not, but I get where she's coming from. At the same time, I'm also thinking of a Bruce Swedien quote where he said, "Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad were more entertainment. Dangerous and History were more his life story." So I think without that vulnerability and that humanity that we start to see in Dangerous, we don't get a record like History. You know, like I think Dangerous really it tills the soil for him to be able to do what he did on the History album.
Yeah, I think, and you know what's crazy? I think that certain songs on History well, here's a question I'll ask both of you.
Go ahead.
If the allegations from the Chandlers don't happen, and the history tour goes on, and without a hitch, and all this stuff doesn't happen,
What do you mean? Wait, Dangerous history?
I'm talking about history. So
Okay.
say we're in the Dangerous era. He's doing his tour. He finishes his tour to completion. There's no allegations from the Chandlers. There's no lawsuit. There's no strip search or anything. Raid of Neverland. All that stuff doesn't happen.
Right.
Hypothetically speaking, do you think that history, we still get history the way it is in terms of certain songs?
Not at all.
I know
Not
that
at all.
like songs like DS wouldn't exist. Songs like Money wouldn't exist. At least
Earth Song would exist.
I mean, Earth Song. You start writing Earth Song after the Bad album, so that song already existed.
Scream won't exist either.
Yeah, Scream probably wouldn't have existed. I think that Lil Susie. He started writing Lil Susie right after like Off the Wall time.
Yeah, 78, I believe, is when he
Did
started
really?
writing. Back in 78.
Yeah, that's how far back
they don't care about sexual would exist still, I think.
No, I think so too.
But Matthew, to your question, I don't think we would get an album like History, but we would see some resemblances of it in future work. Like you said, Lil Susie, Childhood, maybe even Stranger in Moscow to a degree. I know that the allegations sparked it. But I could see him writing a song about, feeling like, hey, I'm the biggest star in the world, yet I feel like the loneliest person on earth. I think we definitely would have got something like that.
You think that we would have gotten the album that was originally planned? Because remember, which was like the Decade album. Basically, Epic wanted to do a greatest hits package with 4 brand new songs only.
That was like Dangerous, though.
Yeah, well, Dangerous is all new songs, but after
but before Dangerous came to be, they were trying to pitch Decade around like Christmas of '89.
Yeah, so he didn't do it. So then after Dangerous, they wanted him to do it,
right?
And he started it that way because it was going to be just like 4 new songs and then all greatest hits, kind of like a Stevie Wonder Original Music Aquarium sort of situation, or a Rick James Reflections, because Reflections starts with 3 brand new songs and everything else is greatest hits. Or like Best of Earth, Wind, Fire, where they have 3 brand new songs, and most of it's greatest hits. I think that maybe that's what we would have gotten.
Probably,
and then like 1996, 7, we would have gotten, or 8, we would have gotten the album that was kind of like a mix between Invincible and History in terms of that kind of thing. I think that's what we would have gotten. But yeah, there are a lot of, I think that They Don't Care About Us would have still been created. I think that Earth Song, and I think that
maybe it'll be as raw as it was. I think given where his head was in '94 when he created that song, it was probably even more raw. But the song probably still existed, just probably not as raw.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking around that time, he had plans of meeting with Stan Lee and trying to buy Marvel and make movies and things like that. So I agree with you, Matthew. I think we would have gotten an original body of work probably in the late 90s, but it would have been a stretch of a few years because he often would release an album on average every 4 years or so. So I agree with you. I think it would have been in the mid to late 90s before we saw brand new material. And it probably would have looked a lot like the best of History and the best of Invincible.
Quite frankly, Invincible should have came out a year or 2 before it did actually.
I think a lot of this post Quincy stuff would have benefited more if it would have come out like a year before they did. I think that Dangerous would have sold more if it came out a year or 6 months prior, because it came right as grunge was starting to take over everything. So I think it would have had a little bit more room to breathe and sold a little bit better.
It's funny saying that because like we say that, but then like not like that album was like a top 5 song all time.
Right.
It was a huge hit. 32 million albums worldwide is nothing to sneeze at.
24 million.
Right.
For Michael's, it's different, I guess. Like I said, the rules.
It is.
That's what I'm saying, though. The rules of Michael are different from everybody else's. He's the only artist that can have multiple albums sell 30 million copies, and that's a fucking failure. Failure.
But it's because of Thriller.
He's on the way down.
Thriller is the only real anomaly in his catalog post Motown. all of his albums, with the exception of Invincible, have sold in the 7 to 10 million range domestically, except for Thriller. I think that Thriller would have sold in its projected range, in that same projected range, or maybe you've done like maybe 12 million or 15. People would look at Bad, Dangerous, and History and give it a little bit more grace.
The thing is, he would still be recognized the same way too, because like, yeah, even if you take out Thriller, he's still the only artist, one of very few artists that actually sold 30 plus million albums, minus Thriller, of course.
Right.
You know, so it would still be, maybe not because I was not having Thriller, it definitely hurts a little bit, but he was still looked at as one of the greatest of all time because of the fact he was so selling product consistently, even without Thriller. You know what I'm saying? The rules are different. Michael Jackson, like, he's the only artist that can sell 40 million copies of Bad and that's deemed a failure.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
And I wrote an article about that when I for the Root for the 30th anniversary of Bad.
Yeah.
2017. I said, how can an album that sells 32 million, 35 million, well, 32 at the time, it's about 36 now, million copies all over the world and be seen as an underrated record? Like, how does an album with 5 #1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100 seen as
and honestly, I think with streaming, that thing's probably cost 40 now.
Yep.
Yeah, according to last I checked at bestsellingalbums.org, it's surpassed 45 million and it's the 5th best selling of all time.
Yeah, it was number 6 the last time I saw it. So
yeah, it's now number 5.
He's the only artist that I think has 2 or 3 albums, best selling albums in the top 10.
He's got 3. Thriller, Bad, and Dangerous are all in the top 10.
Yeah. Right. That's surprised me. Off the Walls hasn't cracked the 30 million yet. Surprised about that, actually.
It still has to make diamond in America. It'll get the certification. It's at 9 now, so I think in about a year or two it'll get to 10.
All right, I have a random question I want to share with y'all because we're about to get in like super geek territory at this point with history. Am I the only one that has an issue with disc 1?
In terms of the greatest hits package?
Yes.
Does existing?
Not that it exists. It's just
the track list.
Yeah, the track listing and the songs that were chosen. So if you look at the tag on the front of it, it says 15 greatest hits. So I'm thinking, if we're talking your greatest hits, how the heck does Heal the World, which was number 27 on the pop chart, how do you consider that a greatest hit?
That song was huge in Europe, though.
It was.
So Michael Jackson works in 2 different markets, or multiple markets now.
I agree with you. It's just when I'm thinking of the 15 songs there, I'm like, okay, if we're going off a chart dominance, because I mean he's known as the king of pop, so that's where I'm basing this off of. If we're looking at the Hot 100, She's Out of My Life and Heal the World don't belong on this album. Instead, you replace him with Dirty Diana and In the Closet because Dirty Diana.
I agree. It's the greatest hits, but it's also Sony trying to, pick and choose, what's best for the sequence.
Yeah.
Like, do you pick Beat It or you pick Dirty Diana? I mean, they probably want to have only one rock song, not 2. That's probably why.
I have issues with the sequencing more than
yes, that's my second issue.
The sequencing of this one I have an issue with.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
I think you have like Don't Stop to Get Enough and Remember the Time back to back.
Yeah, I think if you sequence it in chronological order of when the singles came out, it sounds much better because you hear the natural progression of his sound.
I agree with that 100%. I agree with that, Chris, on that one.
And then when it comes to, I mean, because again, with greatest hits albums, it's like, do you go off a chart history or do you go off of, the most beloved songs? Because I put this in the article, like, where's Human Nature? Where's Smooth Criminal? Where's PYT? Where's Will You Be There? Like, these are all
off the wall, the song itself.
Off the wall, title track. I'm like, where are these songs at? You know what I'm saying? Like, these could easily fit. Like, you can get Girl Is Mine up out of here, and you could slide a better track in there.
But the Girl Is Mine's also the number 1 hit.
It's number 2.
No, it was a number 2 hit, which is why I'm like, okay, like I get it. It has its justifiable spot on the album as a greatest hit, but is it considered one of his best songs? No, it's not. Like, we can name 50 other songs that are better than Girl Is Mine.
I don't believe it.
50?
Oh, the girl is mine.
Yeah.
I've always liked that song. Like, I've always liked The Girl Is Mine. I don't know what. I understand why people don't like it, but I've always liked that song.
Okay,
the bridge is like one of the best bridges. And
the bridge is dope.
Yes,
bridge is dope.
There is a Michael Jackson song I don't like. I hate, but there's songs I definitely can do without. Like it's like whatever. If it's there, it plays on whatever randomly, whatever. I'm not gonna be mad about it. That's one of those songs. So like when it's on, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, like if it comes on, I'll listen to it. But I don't hop in the car and be like, man, you know what? Throw on that Girl Is Mine.
Let's go.
No, that's absolutely true. You'll never catch me.
Baby Be Mine gets popped.
Baby Mine, of course.
Baby Mine, yeah, that's my favorite song off Thriller. It's getting played.
That's my second favorite song, Thriller, actually.
But yeah, so that's the thing is like when it comes to song selection, are we choosing the greatest hits as far as like the highest charting songs, or are we trying to choose his best songs? Because Heal the World, whether you're thinking greatest or best, does not belong on that album. And I respect that song. Great.
So for the listeners real quick, it's 15 songs. Here's the order. It's Billie Jean, The Way You Make Me Feel, Black or White, Rock With You, She's Out of My Life, Bad, I Just Can't Stop Loving You, Man in the Mirror, Thriller, Beat It, The Girl Is Mine, Remember the Time, Don't Stop to Get Enough, Want Me Something, and Heal the World. That's the order.
So here's the thing about Heal the World. Michael Jackson was on record saying that was probably the proudest moment of himself as a songwriter.
Right.
So I think that's one of the reasons why. And plus, he was still very much trying to push this idea of Heal the World to the world.
Yeah.
Especially through, the Heal the World Foundation, the Heal Atlanta, and the Heal, LA offshoots, which still exist today. His son, Prince still runs the Heal LA Foundation. Yeah. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Yeah, I think Dirty Diana absolutely should have been included.
Criminal.
It's just, I think that if we're talking about greatest hits, I think that we have to talk about like chart position, because that's the most quantifiable way to do it. He had at that point 12 number one singles, so all 12 of them should be represented on the greatest hits. You know what I'm saying? Then you can choose, but then again, you'd have to put like The Girl Is Mine on it too, and it's just like, well, there are other impactful songs that weren't necessarily as charted as high as The Girl Is Mine was, even though I like that song.
Plus, it is a Beatle too, so there's that angle also. Let's be real.
So my girlfriend Chrissy's gonna laugh if she makes it to this point in the video, but I actually made two different playlists. One where it's the highest charting songs, and then another with what are considered the most beloved songs of his catalog, regardless of where it charted.
Yeah.
Can I read through it real quick?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So, this is like considering the highest charted songs, if that's how we're going to do it, like the biggest hits that he had. And again, I rearranged it in chronological order. You have Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You, The Girl Is Mine, Billie Jean, Beat It, Wanna Be Starting Something, Thriller, I Just Can't Stop Loving You, Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Man in the Mirror, Dirty Diana, Black or White, Remember the Time, and then In the Closet. And that's the final song.
In the Closet did chart, though, but it didn't chart high, right?
No, that's number 6.
Yes, it's number 6 on the pop chart.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But it was pop chart, okay.
Yeah.
There was 4 top 10s on history. Black or White was number 1. In the Closet was number 6. Remember the Time was number 3. And Wings and Arrows was number 7.
Yeah, that's it. And then as far as his most beloved songs, to me, I would want to go this route because, to the point that Matthew made is like you've got, classic songs that may not have charted as high, but they deserve a place on the album. So Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You, Billie Jean, Beat It, Wanna Be Starting Something, Human Nature, Thriller, Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Man in the Mirror, Dirty Diana, Smooth Criminal, Black or White, Remember the Time, and then end with Will You Be There.
It's funny because beloved songs is all dependent on the fan because the casuals will like that list better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
People like me, and probably like you too as well, but certainly me, in my top 10 favorite NBA songs of all time, there's only one really massive popular song in that top 10.
Yeah.
That's Beat It.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is deep cuts.
Exactly. Because if you talk about beloved songs, If we're talking about beloved songs, and I Can't Help It would have to be included
There you
too.
go.
Yeah,
Everybody loves that song.
But that's a dilemma of like being in the CD era is you can only fit 80 minutes of music on a CD. You know what I'm saying? So
and here's another sick part, Michael Jackson, how big he is, the biggest Michael Jackson. You have not only the generational preferences, of course, you have the cultural ones. There are black fans who love all of Michael, but prefer certain albums more than others. There are black fans like my mother and who prefer Off the Wall and Thriller.
right.
But then you have a lot of the people my age or younger, early 40s, longer than that. People like Christy, for example, who prefer Dangerous and Mystery.
Yeah, that's
you know what I'm saying.
Baby.
So you have all these. This is why it's hard to be Michael Jackson. He's so big. He has so many subjected different people to please.
Yeah,
like you have the European fans who love "Heal the World" and because those songs mean something to those people in those regions, but black folks, they want to hear "I Can't Help It" rock with you in the jams,
or
This-
"Lady in My Life."
this is-
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what I would have loved to have seen him do was do something like Billy Joel does. Like Billy Joel would do concerts where he would alternate the track list or the set list almost every night. So every night he would have a different set list because he had so many classics and hits that
you mean what Metallica's doing for the tour right now, for example. They're actually doing
that's dope.
Yeah, they're doing 2 nights. Like I went to the show 2 weeks ago in Tampa. They did 2 nights. They did Friday and Sunday. Whatever they play on Friday, they're not playing on Sunday.
Right.
So I knew right away they were playing based on what they play on Friday.
Yeah, if Michael took the Prince approach and switched up his set list on any given night and slid in songs like "Get on the Floor" or "Someone Put Your Hand Out," headbuster. Man, you know what I'm saying? It'd be crazy.
I still feel like I would have when he announced that this is it. I'm like, I don't want this is it. First of all, I want an album. I don't want a tour I can't go to. And if you're gonna do a performance, do an MTV Unplugged.
You were gonna go? You weren't gonna go to London to see it?
I didn't have a passport at the time. You know what I'm saying?
I was going to see it.
My mom and I were trying to get tickets, but they sold out so fast. But she was like, "Chris, we're going." I'm like, "Shoot, I'll go with you." Shoot.
Yeah, but I would have preferred an MTV Unplugged.
Yes, that would have been dope.
He would have been able to show people, yo, I can really still sing, and it's not. I can keep your attention without having to do all the crazy production stuff and all that stuff. And we could have gotten really dope acoustic arrangements of songs like a Heartbreak Hotel or
which they were going to do this, by the way. They were rehearsing that a couple of times, and this is it. So that was definitely something being talked about, being done.
Yeah,
that song.
that would have been so dope. I would have loved to have heard an unplugged version of Another Part of Me, or even you know what I'm saying. That would have been super crazy. And then just because he was. When he did the "This Is It" press conference, he says, "I'm going to do the songs my fans want to hear," and he was just basically saying, "Yeah, I'm going to do the hits."
But that's the problem because if you ask your hardcore fans like myself and you, I don't want to hear Billie Jean. Sorry, it's like me and Metallica last week. My wife will tell you, they closed the show with Enter Sandman. I'm like, oh god, whatever. I've heard Enter Sandman so many times. I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care. I want to hear deep
surprise me and be like, yo, I'm gonna slide in Your Ways from the Triumph album.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. I would have loved to hear Time Waits for No One.
Time Waits for No One.
Right. Yeah. This fan wants to hear Heartbreak Hotel live again since 1988.
That's true. That's true.
His best live performance in his entire career.
Or throwing Push Me Away from Destiny. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The really take people off.
The Jacksons did push me away at the Apollo Theater with their first tour after Michael passed.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They did Push Me Away at that show. They did Heaven Knows I Love You Girl at that show.
Whoa. Oh my god, really?
They did Man of War at that tour.
Oh, look at the Golden bag. All right.
They would have if Michael would have did that and did all those deep cuts, I don't know if I could have. I don't even know.
Matthew, keep me honest. Is this the same tour where they opened up with Can't Let Her Get Away?
Well, Can't Let Her Get Away is in the middle of the show. They opened the show with Can You Feel It?
Of course.
And then they have a portion where they do Can't Let Her Get Away, and they're doing a dance routine, and then it leads into Heartbreak Hotel.
Okay. Maybe I'm thinking of another tour because they used to open up with Can't Let Her Get Away, and they would do they'd be groovy.
I didn't know that.
and then I forget what the name of the tour was. I want to say it was maybe Unity Tour. I could be
Unity
wrong
tour
about
was
that.
the first tour. It was
Okay.
because after that, it was the only time that Jermaine was with them. Because after that, Jermaine got off the tour, and it was just Jackie, Tito, and Marlon. Since then,
Sidebar: do we know why Jermaine's on the band anymore?
because they don't like each other.
Yeah,
That's simple. Okay, that's not assumed.
And it's honestly, it's been that way since like the Victory Tour. Honestly, like I mean, they've got decades old beef.
Dude, I read an article.
I know Randy and Jermaine like each other, but Jermaine's been gone for years. So why can Jermaine be part of it? But I guess they don't like.
No, because Jermaine's got ways, man. Listen, I don't like I'm not a fan of like reality television shows.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a popular reality television show, or at least there was on ABC, called Wife Swap.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I remember Wife Swap.
And so
it's still on now, I think.
So Jermaine, there's an episode where Jermaine Jackson did a wife swap with Danny Baldwin's ex-wife.
Gosh, I vaguely remember that.
So Jermaine Jackson's wife at the time went to be with Danny Baldwin, and then Danny Baldwin's ex went to be with Jermaine, and Jermaine acted so
toxic,
like he locked himself in the bathroom and wouldn't come out, and all this other stuff. And they had, how like they have like that black screen with the words, Jermaine Jackson would not come out to be Dr. And I was like, come on, man. So he's just like, like we talked about Michael believing his own hype. Jermaine has look, I really like Jermaine in terms of his music. I think that he has a very underrated solo catalog, particularly
he does.
After the Jacksons left, and he had his solo career after that. I think that pocket of albums is great, but in terms of how he's presented himself in the public and his personal life is really problematic.
Well, I'll say right now, my mom, who's met the entire family when she was a kid, she's met Michael, she's met Joe, all the brothers. She said Jermaine by far was the rudest of all.
I believe it. Michael, there's an article around the time of the Michael's 30th anniversary show. And now in real time, I was reading this. Jermaine was not supposed to perform that night.
That's right.
Because Jermaine was mad that the brothers were getting paid scale. So, and then him and Michael got into an argument about it in the hotel lobby, where Michael was getting really like shady. It was like, dude, I even flew your mistress here. I was like, yo, Michael is petty. Man. And so Frank DeLeo had come back as Michael's manager at that time. And he held a press conference saying Jermaine Jackson will not participate.
I remember that.
We wish him luck on his solo career.
That's so petty.
And so Lenny Kravitz was supposed to be the bassist in the show, actually. Because remember, Lenny is working with Michael because Another Day with the posthumous record. Yeah. They were in the studio. So Lenny was ready to go and play bass, but then Jermaine came back because he saw the press about him and was like, and then I'm sure he apologized. So that should let you know, like,
I will say the best part of that show was the brothers, honestly.
No, I
was there in person. So
I agree. I'll give you this might be a hot take, but I always felt like Michael was much better when he was performing live with his brothers than he was when he was performing on his solo tours.
I remember you saying that in the past conversation, and I don't know. Yeah. So what is it about him being with his brothers that you think elevates him compared to him being by himself?
I think that he is, well, first of all, he sings live when he's with his brothers. He doesn't lip sync. And number one, and number two, he's looser when he's with his brothers. When he's doing his solo stuff, you can tell that he's really like in it and like really tight and trying to like give it 100%. When he's with his brothers, it's just like it's much more natural.
But can I argue though that
he seems more smooth, he seems more loose, more relaxed. I think it's better when he's the leader instead of being by himself. I think he feels more comfortable being the leader.
But can I argue that the reason is that way probably is because of the fact that the demands, the expectations have changed. Like with his brothers, he's Michael Jackson, the great artist and part of Jackson 5, and he put Off the Wall, but he's not the icon Michael Jackson yet. And when he's doing the solo tours on the Bad Tour and Dangerous Tours, of course, it's different because like there's more focus on the performance stuff as opposed to the rawness. I think your point here is this: with the brothers, it's more about the music, more about this the energy of the music and the band and,
Exactly.
and the actual raw music. With Michael Jackson, the artist, it's more about the spectacle.
Yeah.
At large, more than else.
Plus, Michael
preferred
Michael preferred performing his solo material anyway. He said that in his autobiography that when he did Triumph, he was like, "This is our best tour because there's no marginal material on the Triumph set list." We're like throwing shade at like the Gamble and Huff stuff on the low. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
to be fair though, let's be real though. I mean, I like the Gamble and Huff stuff. Don't get me wrong, personally, but they don't hold a candle to Testy and Triumph. They just don't.
Oh, it's close.
I can make some arguments with a couple of songs, but on the strength of the albums, I would agree with you.
Maybe
stronger records.
Maybe if they got the treatment those albums got with the producers after on those records, I can see that. But I just think the production on Destiny and Triumph just laps around the Jackson self-titled and
I wouldn't say laps because like Gamble and Huff are legitimately
they are, but
the greatest ever.
But they have a lane though. I feel like
yes,
the Triumph album, the Destiny album feels a lot more universal in a way.
I think you know what it is. It's exactly what you're right. I think that the Subtitle Jackson's album and the Going Places album are very much a product of the Philly machine, just like
RnB, and it's centered around one genre, RnB,
one sound, exactly the Philly sound. Much like you know what I'm saying. I think Destiny and Triumph are an epitome of what the Jacksons sound like. You know, I think Destiny more than anything. I think Destiny is the purest example of what the Jacksons sound like because Triumph is just them trying to keep up with Off the Wall. And then Victory is them trying to keep up with Thriller.
I'll keep it real quick. To me, Triumph almost feels like a Michael Jackson soul album. To keep it real, minus one or two songs. Feels like a song of Michael Jackson.
I may be on an island. I'm sure there's some people out there that do agree with me. But if we go song for song, I think Triumph clears Destiny.
I agree.
I don't agree with that.
Triumph. Height of Powers. Can You Feel It or Shake Your Body?
I would go with Can You Feel It, but Shake Your Body Down to the Ground is phenomenal. I mean, it's a banger.
Yeah, it is.
The drum.
But then the next biggest song on Destiny is what? Things I Do for You.
No, Blame It on a Boogie.
Blame It on a Boogie.
Oh, Blame It on a Boogie or Heartbreak Hotel. Which one you gonna go with?
Well, I'm gonna go with Heartbreak Hotel.
Which is bigger? The bigger song was Blame It on a Boogie. That's on radio more. But
right, but I'm saying we're going song for song. Like, are you gonna go with Heartbreak Hotel? Or are you gonna go Blame It on a Boogie?
Question.
Right. So,
yeah.
And then to me the deeper cuts like Your Ways and Lovely One.
That song.
Time Waits for No One. Everybody. I mean, these are all bangers. You know what I'm saying?
But the slow songs on Destiny's clears the slower songs on Triumph.
I would agree with you. On the strength of Push Me Away, I'm with you. I'm with you on Push Me Away.
No, Push Me Away. That's what you get for being polite. And Bless the Soul. I'd much rather have those than
Time Waits for No One.
Time Waits for No One. I mean, that's really the only slow song.
Yeah, that's really the only ballad on the record.
Oh, here's another question I asked
Okay.
about this. Why do you think the Jacksons and Michael didn't really subscribe to doing slow jams? You know, like legitimate slow jam. Like, because I can count on one hand the amount of times I heard Michael Jackson sing what I consider a legitimate slow jam. And I'm not talking about a love ballad. You know, a love ballad is a song about love. A slow jam is a song that gets you in the mood to, you know, get it going.
Yeah.
So, you know, like Find Me a Girl is probably like the first time Michael tried to do, or the Jacksons tried to do a legitimate slow jam.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lady in My Life after that. I'm one of the few people that think that maybe Liberian Girl can be considered a slow jam, but I think it's on the border. And then after that, there's no slow jams until Invincible. you know, and like Break of Dawn is a slow jam, but I think that's the only real slow jam on that record.
Yeah.
So why do you think that the Jacksons never got to do those types of songs when that was an era where a lot of those songs, because, you know, that's Isley Brothers is around at that time.
Yeah.
Confunction is around, you know,
Very
all
right.
the show bands. Like, why do you think the Jacksons just never got around to doing those types of records?
Here's my theory on that, and it's 30 seconds, 30 seconds old, so I may change it, but I think a lot of it had to do with their Jehovah's Witness upbringing. I think that shaped a lot of what they did.
That's fair.
I can see that.
Fair.
That's very fair.
That's just the short answer of it. But yeah, what about you, EJ?
I don't have an answer for that one, to be honest with you. I really don't. Okay. I don't have an answer for that.
It's
weird. Go ahead.
I would agree with you, Chris, to a certain point that they didn't want to put themselves out there on Front Street because of their religion, even though they were knocking down groupies left and right since the ABC days. But I can see that. I also think that I think the Jacksons and Michael, but the Jacksons as a group were more cognizant of the power that they had to control the narrative in terms of peace and in terms of unifying people. I think that was a really big thing for them. That's why we had, you know, the whole idea of the peacock that was introduced
for Triumph.
It was introduced with Destiny, and then
they saw themselves as bigger than just an R&B band and a pop band. They saw themselves as a band that was doing bigger. And in Michael's case, of course, he saw even bigger than that, and which we saw years later. Obviously, there is no restriction Michael Jackson and what he could touch and stuff. So that's the way I look at it more than anything else.
Question for you, kind of dovetailing off what you said, Matthew. Like, would it also be possible that the up-tempo joints that they typically would make, it came more natural to them compared to doing a slow jam?
I think so. I think that's a good point too, because a lot of the stuff they wrote, they tended to write a lot more of up-tempo stuff. And I think that had to do with, you know, the Motown thing, you know, having hits like Dancing Machine, having hits like I Want You Back in ABC, and those sort of joints, and them being like their bread and butter. I think that had a lot to do with it too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Those would be my 2 points is their religious upbringing. And then I think when it came to dance grooves, I think that came naturally to them. But then Michael would say that, you know, ballads are what make a Michael Jackson album. Like, that's how he felt about Off the Wall. So
where does real quick, we close out the Michael's segment of this. Where does History rank among your favorite MJ albums?
Oh, among my favorites.
So number one is like virtually a tie between Off the Wall and Bad for me.
Yeah. Man.
Then you get that weird little number between History and Dangerous. It gets really weird there for me.
I'm gonna preface it by saying today this is my ranking because it could change. Bad is still number 1. Dangerous is number 2. History's number 3. Thriller's number 4. Off the Wall number 5.
For me, and this is in terms of the I mean, we basically have alluded to it, but it's the epic albums.
Yo, it's for Michael. What the hell, man?
Yeah, I mean, we could try to slide the Motown albums.
No, because Ben would be in there too.
Yeah,
it'd be in your top 5.
Yeah.
Chris.
But let's just
about this. But Matt and I probably on the same boat with this one. There is something about the Motown era stuff he did solo that I had, and Chris will tell you this too also, because I'm obsessed with the stuff of that era. There is something about that stuff that is, it may not be my favorite stuff as a project, but there's some songs there that just really get me. When you talk about songs that make me cry, those songs make me cry more than Earth Song and Man in the Mirror. Songs he did
there.
Because I think it goes back to the humanization of a 14-year-old boy, 13-year-old boy singing these songs, knowing what he went through in that time. It hits differently now that he's gone, especially too, on top of that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I would say if we're talking Motown albums, for me, it's a toss-up between Got to Be There and Forever Michael as the best Motown era album.
Yeah, to me, I'll do this 2 ways. the Motown stuff. Ben would be my number one. Then Got to Be There. Then Forever Michael. Then Music and Me.
Yeah.
But in terms of what we were talking about, my ranking would be Bad would be number one. Off the Wall is number two. Thriller is number three. History is number four. Dangerous is number five, and Invincible is number six.
Wow.
No one loves Invincible anymore, huh? Jeez.
Not everybody is going to say that Unbreakable is their favorite song of all time.
But here's what I will say. Here's what I will say. I love the fact that Invincible is getting a reappraisal by the younger generation. My son is 14 years old. I went to his 8th grade graduation, and we came home, and he was singing "Heaven Can Wait."
That song's getting a lot of like.
That song is awesome.
That song's getting like the last couple of years got like a little bit of a cult following now lately.
I'm so mad at Sony. The music video for "Heaven Can Wait" would have been crazy if they would have let it be a single. You know what I'm saying? It would have been great.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't know when I'm going to do this, but I would love to reach out to a few fans that love the Invincible album and write an article that's kind of advocating for them. Because like I want to hear what they're hearing. And I go into it like I did with History. Like, you know, I'll force myself to be like, pretend like you know nothing about this album and just enjoy it for what it is. But I cannot reach that point with Invincible for some reason. I don't know why. So I would love to hear what they're hearing so I can be able to champion it and be like, hey, like, I love what you love, but
let me say
for
the record that Invincible is probably on the bottom of my list also too.
Yeah.
Because the problem, and I think Matt and I was discussing on this show actually years ago, it's not even so much, it is a sequencing. There's too much filler material. The first 8 songs on our record,
crazy.
The album ended there. It's a great record.
Yeah.
It's a great Michael Jackson record again. But then you have songs like, look, I know you guys hate 2000 Watts. I like personally, whatever, I get it. But like songs like You're My Life, Privacy can go. The Walk Away, I guess, has some staying power, but whatever. Cry can definitely go.
Yeah. The Lost Children.
I actually like Lost Children. Because
Lost Children's got to get Lost Children out of here, man.
I respect it, but yeah, we got to get out of here.
Thank you. I respect it.
It's more so the fact that Michael is going to, at that point in his life, was going to have that one sappy song that means something to him.
And we talked about that, yeah.
That's his Heal the World. That's his third song.
I get that, but if we're trying to do an all killer, no filler Invincible list, like we gotta get Lost Children out of here.
Let's get Michael back to 1983 and 87.
Right.
Then that gotta go. But
here's what I'll say real quick about that. Number one, Heal the World shouldn't have been on Dangerous either, and that's a hill I'm gonna die on.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think Heal the World.
You're not a fan of the song?
No, I love the song now, but it has no sonic business being on Dangerous, particularly, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, let me put it this way. I feel like it should have been a standalone non-album single with Gone Too Soon as the B-side. So if you put Heal the World as a charity single for like children and everything, Gone Too Soon as a charity single for the AIDS research, and then let it just sit by itself, and then you have more records, more like it would shorten the track list, and it would make Dangerous much more of a cohesive sonically, because you have more of the Teddy stuff on the record. Or you can replace it with other Teddy songs, like you could have put Joy and Someone Put Your Hand Out,
or Blood on the Dance Floor.
Or Blood on the Dance Floor, which was part of the original track list. You know, it would have made much better sense. But just getting back to what we were saying about Invincible.
Yeah.
I feel like if you get rid of like 4 to 6 songs on Invincible, it's an all-timer. Yeah, it's an all-timer, because like you said, those first 8 songs, you know, are great. You know, I think that like Unbreakable, absolutely great. I feel like Break of Dawn, like that run of Break of Dawn, Heaven Can Wait, You Rock My World, to Butterflies is excellent. Even
Speechless. And then Speechless. That's probably my favorite song on the album.
Is it really?
Oh gosh, I love Speechless, man.
I love the sentiment of Speechless, but as a song, it's probably the weakest in terms of the production. I just think that production wise, it doesn't really do anything for me.
The weakest. Did you not hear songs 9 through 14?
I gotta get Chris on this one, buddy.
I would say there are other songs that are kind of weak from a production standpoint, but again,
it's very thin. It's very thin. I think that I think for me, like
that song, I think could have been. I mean, I remember when the album was starting to leak in 2001 on the internet. Fans and people talking about this song called "Speechless" is going to be a massive hit because it touched the soul, the lyrics, the theme. It is touched in ways, and to me, that song could, if it got a proper like release, like a single, radio airplay kind of thing, it could have really been a massive hit for him, honestly.
And here's the genius about the lyrics, and Matthew, I want you to finish the point that you were making. The genius about the lyrics is that you can read into it what you want. He could be talking about God, a spouse, children, or all the above. You can project onto it what you want. And that feeling that you feel for Speechless, anybody that makes you feel speechless, you can connect it to that.
That's why I enjoy it from a lyrical and a thematic standpoint. I love that because of the allegory of it. But
you're talking sonically?
I'm just talking sonically. It's just very thin to me. Just personally, like I love the way it begins with the acapella.
Yeah.
But then
back to the roots.
But then once you introduce all the choir,
in the end,
and everything, and even the instrumentation, I feel like "Don't Walk Away" was a much better version of the sparse instrumentation that Speechless probably should have.
I actually see a point there. I think the only problem with Speechless I have is the choir. It's a little too sappy.
The one, if I had to nitpick, because again, like I said, Speechless is probably my favorite song on the album. The one thing I would nitpick is that long note that he holds, very similar to "You Are Not Alone." It sounds like it's patched in. It doesn't sound like it's really him.
I agree. I agree with that.
It sounds like it's like comped together with other takes to make it sound like a long note.
And Michael is never comped.
Right.
Like almost
not
never.
Like that. Yeah.
So that's another thing that's just like, no. Like if you get rid of Speechless, if you get rid of 2,000 watts, Privacy, Lost Children,
2,000 watts, really? Come on, bro.
Yeah, no. Get 2,000 watts.
2,000 watts. No, that's legitimately.
Is it the lyrics that suck, or is it the beat? The beat is sick. I love
everything about it. Sucks.
Everything about that song is just not. It's just unappealing. Just you know what I'm saying. It's just so like it was trying too hard to be a banger. And then,
like cutting edge.
And then the way that Michael sung in the lower register was not the best way to utilize his.
By the way, that was not auto-tune. That was him really singing that tone.
I know.
Yeah, and it's like just and this lyrically it's just.
Yeah, it's like
no. When was the last time, Matt? Patooey.
Patooey.
For a second, I thought you were about to go hop Tua with it for a second. I was like,
no. Lyrically, it's just no. Like he's saying, he's like, high post lady and all this other stuff. Like, no, come on, dude.
High post lady.
Like it's just
want to be there for me, no.
No, man, just get 2,000 watts out of here.
If anything, all right. So, question, because I mean, there are a lot of outtakes that could have made this album. Like, We've Had Enough.
Fall Again should have made the album.
Yeah, Fall Again, A Place with No Name. Hollywood Tonight.
By the way, Fall Again, top 10 all-time song for me. Michael's song.
That is true. You did say that.
Man, if they would have just got the bridge together, man, that should have.
The demo version sounds amazing.
No, the demo version sounds like it's finished. It's like
it does sound.
It's the most finished sounding of all the songs on the Ultimate Collection box set, with the exception of We've Had Enough.
Correct.
Which should have been on the album. If you take like get rid of Privacy and put We've Had Enough on there, then it works. You know what I'm saying?
Cry also, I read it.
Yeah, Cry's gotta go. Like I said, all the RnB Voldemort songs, I'm just not a fan of. I wasn't
not because of that. I mean, it's not that makes it easier.
It's just because I don't enjoy the songs like that. Like I never really was a big fan of You Are Not Alone. I mean, I'm kind of better on the song now, but I've never really enjoyed that song.
2,000 watts over You Are Not Alone.
Oh, You're Not Alone.
You Are Not Alone is better.
Stop it, Chris.
You're Not Alone
Stop
is still better than
Stop it.
It's not even a contest, bro.
The only thing that saves that song for me is the last 47 seconds.
You're Not Alone?
You talking about Michael Adlin?
You're Not Alone is my least favorite Michael Jackson song of all time.
I don't know. I wouldn't say least.
I will listen. Well, I mean, I love Lost Children. So
here's one thing. You Are Not Alone makes more sense being on History than Come Together was. Come Together.
Oh, see, I'm a push back on that.
That's a take there, buddy.
You read my article, man. You read my article. Now, sonically, I get it. Sonically, it sounds like it belongs on Bad, but
because it does, because it was made in the same time. Because that's like the biggest harp I have with that being on History. Plus the fact that I'm just not a fan of that version of that song.
That's fair. But to the point that you made, History is a concept album. So it makes perfect sense for him to include it because one, he is kind of flexing of like, yo, like I own the most I'm the most powerful man in show business. But then he also hears a debt unpaid and he's paying homage to Chuck Berry and saying, hey, I saw what y'all did. Y'all think y'all are slick, but because I own the catalog, I want to let y'all know, like the jig is up. I see what's going on. So
I love that you said on your article.
The sick thing Chris said in there is he goes, he turned rock sacred sex into a soul exorcism.
Yep.
Damn, Chris.
I love that part in your article. I love that part because that was first of all. Can I just gush over how great your article was and how it made me feel?
It really was, dude. It really was.
It made me feel so small. Like I would just
stop it, bro. No, come on.
Like I really did. Like people, for everybody that's watching, like Chris told me like a few episodes ago, months and months ago. Chris told me he was working on a History 30 article, and I knew that I was working on mine. So I knew from then that he was going to write a piece. And like I said, I started writing my piece back in 5 years ago, or at that time 4 years ago. So when he told me it was finished, I'm like, okay, let me not read it because I don't want to part of me was just like, I don't want to sort of intrinsically siphon something that he said and put it into my article if my article wasn't done. Because I knew there was still some stuff that I wanted to include in my article that I hadn't included, even though I'd been working on it for a while. So I said, let me finish my article first, put it out on my Substack, and then read Chris. Man, I'm so glad I did that because if I would have read your article before finishing mine, no one would have read mine because I would not have put it out because it's that good. The way that first of all, the Come Together thing, we talked about the Chuck Berry thing, that was brilliant. But my whole thing that I loved was you talking about Stranger in Moscow and comparing that to, Jesus at Gethsemane.
Yeah, the Garden of Gethsemane.
That to me was crazy because you and I, because we've talked about will you be there? That's Michael in the burning bush in Exodus. You know what I'm saying? So when you compared it to that part, I was just like, oh my God, that absolutely is the truth. Yeah. In terms of that's a brilliant analogy. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
And even like I said, not to liken Michael to Christ or anything like that. Right. But just the whole parallel of this, like I said, him being alone, his disciples, his followers, his whatever, they're not there. He's crying out and not hearing anything back. And then he's about to endure this sort of public sacrifice and public lynching that's about to happen. Because it's like you said earlier, EJ, that Michael, I always call Michael the Black Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right.
Oh, I love that. That's
he's
so
the Black
good.
Obi-Wan Kenobi because what did he say?
Years, yeah.
Yeah, because what happened when in the first Star Wars movie when Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fought? He said, "You can't win. If you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." And that's what happened to Michael Jackson. Ever since he's died, he's been more powerful and more popular than ever, and that's why I always call him the Black Obi-Wan Kenobi. Plus, because I call that's why I call it Stevie Wonder Yoda because But my whole thing with your article, like I guess just to get back to it just real quick.
Yeah.
I love the analogy that you said of come together. It helped me to really understand why it was on the album. Because number one, yeah, he owned the rights to it, so of course he's gonna put some money in his pocket by getting it published. But at the same time, I'm just like, okay, that album you recorded in 1988, or you released it in 1988, recorded in 1987. It's 1995 now. The production of it doesn't fit. His voice isn't the same.
Right.
And at that point, like I had discovered the Beatles and all the other stuff, and I'm like, dude, Michael's version of Come Together is probably my least favorite version of that song.
That's fair.
Because I've heard I've heard like tons of dope versions of Come Together. I mean, the Beatles, of course, is great. Aerosmith does a great cover of it.
Yeah, they do.
The Brothers Johnson do a dope cover of Come Together.
I actually rather heard another song on there. I actually agree with you on that one. Now, granted, given that I heard a song years before on Moonwalker, I prefer to hear something fresh in that place instead of that song. But I get why you did it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
You know? So, all right, one more thing to get you guys out of here.
Me too. I love the flex idea. Okay.
Yeah. This is somewhat Michael related because he's actually on this list. Did you guys see the Billboard top 25 RnB artists?
Yeah, I did. This I read the criteria, and this is some diabolical work. This list.
You're not a fan of that list?
I'm not, because like their criteria was the same as it was when they did the same list 10 years ago. Michael was number 1 in 2015. So what's happened in the next 10 years? Like, it's not like Stevie dropped another album.
So,
Aretha dropped another album.
So from what I'm reading here, the criteria was based on vocal prowess, body of work, career longevity, industry achievements, game-changing influence, and enduring generational cultural impact. Now, for listeners here, I wish I had a computer here. I could show the list on the screen, but I don't have that capability on the iPad, unfortunately. Here's the top 10 list, the top 10 of the 25. Number 1, Stevie Wonder. Number 2, Aretha Franklin. Number 3, Michael Jackson. Number 4, Beyonce. Number 5, Whitney Houston. Number 6, James Brown. 7, Prince. 8, Mariah Carey. 9, R. Kelly. 10, Marvin Gaye. Worth noting that they did this same practice 10 years ago. Mike was number 1 10 years ago.
Right.
So I don't know what changed between him and Nick.
Well, I know it changed. A certain documentary on HBO happened.
That's
so
it.
That's enough for most people.
Yep.
It's enough for a lot of these.
Can I say if you can't separate music and everything else, you should be doing this job. Straight up.
So let's take the inverse of what
I agree.
Let's take the inverse of what you're saying. If that was enough to knock him down 2 spots, what does that say about the rest of the criteria? The fact that he still made it to number 3.
First off, I think Michael's too high anyway to begin with.
Too high?
R&B.
Here, see,
that's at the root of his artistry, bro. Yeah, like rhythm and blues, like that's
I agree.
Yeah,
but Michael's
let's talk about it.
But to me, Michael's bigger than R&B. That's what I'm saying. That's why I find it.
But with that criteria, first of all. Here, let me just say something about that. First of all, with the criteria that Billboard had, Stevie Wonder should have been number 1 the first time in 2015.
I agree.
He should have been number 1 the first time.
I agree with you.
That's fair.
Second of all, if we're saying that Michael Jackson shouldn't be on the list because he transcends R&B,
he should be on the list.
So
that's not that high. He
should be, but the same argument would go for Stevie Wonder, because to me, Stevie Wonder, his peers are not the people on this list. His peers are Chopin and Mozart and Beethoven and Gershwin. Those are his peers, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
And Michael's peers are probably the Beatles and Elvis and
exactly
right.
So, but they're R&B artists for sure. I mean, like, and same thing with Prince. Like, don't try to make Prince into this because he's a black guy with a guitar, automatically he's not R&B. Like, get out of here. Yeah. Prince is a Midwestern funk artist at his absolute core. Michael Jackson is a Midwestern soul artist at his core. That's what makes it, when he does albums outside of soul, sound so great. Like a Dirty Diana, or like a Give In to Me, or you know, or those sort of songs. Because don't get me wrong, he's an R&B artist.
You
No,
know
no,
what I'm
I
saying? At
agree.
his core,
And
he
he has a place on this
transcended
list. I just
R&B
think
because
number
he's
3
of
is too
his
high, though.
talent.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
but-
think so. Not with that criteria. I think
Well,
that.
I'm gonna
I
say
think
this.
that.
Hot
I
take,
think that he needs. I think that. I'm not mad at the top 3. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I think that Marvin Gaye should have been higher. I think honestly Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, and Stevie Wonder should have been the top 3.
Hot
I'm
take
actually
here,
not
probably.
mad at that.
Hot take, real quick here.
Yeah.
I might get shot in saying this. R. Kelly's too low.
Nope. No. Listen, let me put it this way. Somebody said this on Threads, and I'll repeat what I said.
Okay.
That somebody said that R. Kelly, everyone says unpopular opinion blank. It was like one of them was unpopular opinion. R. Kelly is not a musical genius, and I said yes because first of all, people use the word genius incorrectly
Loosely.
anyway, because genius is just about your capacity of knowledge. It's not about the application of that knowledge. A rocket scientist is a genius, but a rocket scientist couldn't make a Love Supreme. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay. How come it's not both and when it comes to capacity and application? To me,
just
that
from
puts you in a different category.
To me, just from a creative standpoint, I think that like if you're going to use like your knowledge to apply it to something, I think that you can be a genius and do something creative, but it's not one doesn't have anything to do with the other. That's just from the definition, the granular thing. But to get to the point, R. Kelly isn't a musical genius. I think that just because R. Kelly was an incredibly prolific artist. R. Kelly was an incredibly successful artist, but not everything that's prolific and successful is a work of genius or a work of great subtlety. So, like when people call him the king of R&B, he's more of the Burger King of R&B. Okay, so
I'm not here defending R. Kelly, man, but damn, man,
Burger King of R&B is
think about
crazy.
it. Think about it.
That's funny.
Burger King is not at the top tier of dining and cuisine, but it's something that's extremely prolific and extremely popular.
Great burgers too.
It gets the job done. It gets the job done, and that's R. Kelly's music. It's extreme. There's a lot of it. It gets the job done. It's not something that you're going to say is of a work of like absolute, like you're not going to put R. Kelly's songwriting in tandem with Marvin Gaye or Curtis Mayfield. You're just not. You're just not going to do that. So that's why I'm like, no.
I'll push back on one thing. I will say that 12 Play was the Let's Get It On of the 90s. That made him the Marvin Gaye of the 90s. On a
surface level thing, I would say yes. But the thing about Let's Get It On, and I wrote about this with the Griot, is that Let's Get It On is deceptively an extremely poignant and sad album. If you think, because every song, with the exception of the title track and the title reprise, every song has an element of loss
especially like Distant Lover
of loss
or
Distant Lover.
Come get to this. I don't really hear any sadness.
No,
in that,
come get to this is the opposite of Distant Lover, because Distant Lover is I was with you and everything was great and now you're gone and I'm sad. Come get to this is the opposite. I was sad until you came back and now you're with me again. So there's still that loss that's in there.
With you.
You Sure Love to Ball ends, which is the most explicit song on the album, but it still ends with, I know that you're gonna break my heart. I have to get ready. You know what I'm saying? Please stay once you go away. He's anticipating, and if I should die tonight, he's anticipating loss.
Yeah.
So that's what makes that album hit more. 12 Play is just, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing like Back to the Hood of Things is not something that, you know what I'm saying?
Or Summer Bunnies.
Summer Bunnies drives me crazy. Or I Like the Crotch on You. Those are not songs that belong next to an album like Let's Get It On. But it gets the job done.
Chris, let me ask you a question. What is the most egregious thing or things you saw on this list?
Man, I'm probably gonna have people coming after me if they're a huge fan of this person. Beyonce's too high.
You're dead.
Yeah.
You're dead.
Beyonce's way too. Beyonce should not be number. Beyonce's great. Don't get me wrong, but number 4, I don't think so. And to me, the most egregious one, the person I think is way too low, Luther Vandross is way too low on this list.
Yes.
Here's what I will say though.
He was 21, I think, right?
But this might be controversial. If they make an argument that Michael Jackson doesn't belong on the list because he's too pop, I would make that argument also for Luther Vandross. I think Luther Vandross is more of a pop artist than people give him credit for.
The songs are very simple. I agree. Very poppy.
Yeah, it's a very Luther Vandross was a very, like I said, he's probably, in my opinion, he's the most underrated songwriter of this generation because it has a lot to do with. Because it has a lot to do with the fact that his most famous songs are songs that he covered by other people, but his songs that he did write were excellent. But he's more of a pop songwriter than people think. Yes, he's an R&B artist.
As early as like Brand New Day on the Wiz.
Exactly.
That's like the earliest sign of his brilliance as a songwriter.
Absolutely, but you think about songs like, he didn't write it, but a song like Here and Now, songs like Give Me the Reason, songs like Stop to Love, those are pop records.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to say that Michael doesn't belong on the list because he's too pop, then the same can be said about Luther Vandross, in my opinion, who I think was more who followed the aesthetic of pop music in a more paint by the numbers way, for lack of a better term, than Michael did. Michael was pop because he did a radical amalgamation of different Black genres that people people didn't know what to call it. And that's why they had to call it pop music.
If I could change my answer, I do still think that Luther's too low. I think he should be higher on the list. But the most egregious one that's way too low, I think, is Barry White. He should not be number 42. He should be much higher.
Yeah, I agree.
Much higher.
Here's another thing I'll say about that.
Sure.
I know Tank made a comment online that he thought that he was too low. I just started. And this is because remember they were doing it 10 artists at a time, so I didn't know what the whole list was. So I'm like, I can name 50 people better than Tank just off the top of my head right now. Like the fact that you're on the list is a miracle. If you're 75 on the list, that's a miracle because Tank is an amazing singer and he's a talented songwriter, but he does not have the output and the longevity to stand nose to nose with a lot of the people on this list. And that's just the bottom line. There are people that probably should be below him that aren't, but at the same time, I'm just like, dude, like just be happy you made it at all. I also agree Beyonce should not be that high on the list. I understand why she's that high on the list, but she shouldn't be when you, like I said, I mean, it's complicated because Beyonce has achieved so much that, you don't want to act like she's not as important as these other artists, but at the same time, when you don't put people like, it's in real time. Everyone knows how important Beyonce is. Not everybody knows how important Gladys Knight is, and how important Patti LaBelle is, and how important Chaka Khan is. Those people, to me, particularly Chaka Khan, should have been in the top 10, in my opinion, because Chaka Khan has the voice. She has the output. She has the fact that she did it in 2 iterations as a solo artist and as a member of Rufus, which helps with her output. And she had the accolades. They had Grammys, #1 hits as a group. She should have been higher on the list in the top 10, probably. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, like I said, like I understand why they put Beyonce in the top 5. I understand why they put R. Kelly in the top 10. However, it's just like I said, these lists are subjective. We're supposed to have these conversations. That's why they make these lists.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just like no.
So what was Matt? What was your issue with this list? What stood out the most egregious? Or
I mean, to me, it was just like the lower stuff. Like, I'm not really that mad at the top 10. I'm certainly not mad at the top 3. I'm glad Michael was in the top 5. Like I said, Stevie Wonder belongs in #1. I mean, it just is what it is. I think that he should have been #1 the first time when they did the
I agree 100% on that one as well.
As much as I love Mike, But come on, this is Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is the only person that touches him in terms of being prolific is Prince, and even Prince with his album run, it still doesn't compare to Music of My Mind all the way to Higher Than July. That run. Nobody can touch that run.
Oh, I would beg to differ.
Look, nobody can touch that run. From Music of My Mind, Talking Book, Intervisions, Fearless Personality, Songs of Key Life, Secret Life of Plants, Higher Than July. Nobody makes a run like that. The only person that comes close is probably Marvin Gaye.
I would say from Dirty Mind to Love Sexy, that run is insane.
I would say, first of all, Dirty Mind to Batman. Because Batman,
and I love Batman. Don't get me wrong, like that's top 3 favorite Prince record for me. But if we're talking like when most considered him at his peak, Dirty Mind to Love Sexy, 1980 to 1988. I mean, that I would say that's he's the only artist that can give Stevie a run for his money on his classic run.
Well, but here's the thing, and the reason I don't agree with that is because Stevie Wonder is even though he's the best artist in my opinion, he's one of the least polarizing.
I would agree with that, which is why I think nobody had an issue with Stevie being number 1. Is like he's probably the most universally beloved artist ever. Like,
but then again,
after this list came out.
Exactly, but you can't hate on a guy that only has 2 of his 5 senses, because then you'll just be ableist. But but at the same time, Dirty Mind was a very polarizing record, as was Love Sexy, as was Around the World in a Day. Those are polarizing records, even controversy to a smaller degree. So, so even though artistically, those records are great and it's a great run, like I said, it's universally accepted that Stevie Wonder made 5-6 consecutive undisputable masterpiece albums that are un-F-withable. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say that. That's why I say Marvin Gaye is probably the next person after that, because Marvin Gaye, you have What's Going On, Trouble Man soundtrack, Let's Get It On, I Want You, Here My Dear, even the live album with Got to Give It Up on it, the live album, the first live album before that with the Distant Lover thing, that whole run, that comes close. Janet's run from Control to All For You, I would put up there.
Wait, you put All For You in that?
Oh, okay. Velvet Rope.
Yeah, I was gonna say Velvet Rope.
I'm just saying, All For You had the critical had the commercial success, but
it did.
In terms of the artist, basically the 4-album run of Control, Rhythm Nation, Janet,
from Control to
Velvet Rope is great. I would put the Beatles basically from Rubber Soul to Let It Be. I'd put them up there too, as in terms of fighting for second place, but no one can touch.
I'm on the fence about Let It Be though. Like,
I actually like it better now than I did.
I do like it, but if you start with Rubber Soul and then you end at Abbey Road, that's a crazy run. You know what I'm saying?
That is a crazy
so it's kind of like Let It Be would kind of be the Batman of the Beatles run. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people love it, some people don't really care for it.
Let It Be is actually more like Graffiti Bridge.
There you go. That's a better comparison. Is that Let It Be is more Graffiti Bridge than it is Batman.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're talking runs, where does Michael fit into that? Like, from Off the Wall to Dangerous, or from Off the Wall to History?
To Dangerous.
Here's another thing about that. I count the Jackson records in Michael's run. So
that's fair.
I actually have the run. So no, it starts with Destiny. Destiny. So Destiny, Off the Wall, Triumph, Thriller, Victory, Bad, Dangerous. I count Destiny and Triumph in his run. Even though they're Jackson records, I still count that as part of the run. And low key the live album too, because the live album slaps.
Yeah, that's some of Michael's best singing I think I've ever heard him do.
That's his best tour, in my opinion.
Vocally,
that's his peak. There's just like I said, he and the brothers were just that was them at their, you know, at their peak. Because once they got to Victory, you know, there was just a lot of like animosity that was going on. There was just a lot of like, oh, we're here for Thriller, we're not here for, you know, the Jacksons. You know, that was really their peak. But I would put MJ in there too. But like I said, they're all fighting for second place when it, you know, Stevie's number one. Everybody else is just, you know, interchangeable in my opinion. You know, as long as it's agreed that Stevie is number one, just when it comes to runs, if nothing else. Okay.
Yeah, based on your argument, I totally understand where you're coming from as far as Stevie being like his golden run. In fact, I remember reading that article when you first published it, your golden run piece, which that's one of my favorites. I put it up there with. I'm gonna throw it back on you for real. When you did New Jackson Swing on the Dangerous album,
yo,
that was the very first piece. That's the old blog, but that's how far back I went with you. Like that was one of the first pieces I saw you do. Like that personally, like that Stevie Wonder piece that you did is up there for me as far as like, man, like I really enjoyed that, and you made a compelling argument. So now I'm with you there. Yeah. EJ, because I know that we've been doing a lot of talking. As far as the list, who do you think was ranked too high? Who do you think was ranked too low? If you had
I told you Michael's too high as was.
Which is crazy, but that's fine.
I get that answer.
It is crazy. Sorry.
Too low. I'll be honest with you. I think I can't stand this guy, but John Legend is a little too low. I can't stand him.
Yeah, I don't think he should be on this list.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing.
Anyway, I'm good with that.
Outside of All of Me and Ordinary People, what's he really got?
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean first of all, I love
the guy, so whatever.
I actually love John Legend's second album once again. The album with Save Room and Heaven Only Knows, and that album to me is his best body of work. Like from beginning to end, it's great stuff. But he shouldn't be on this list if we're being totally honest. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, he's a guy that, you know, he has his pockets of moments and songs that transcend, but no, he shouldn't even be on this list.
Mary J is too low at 16. Janet Jackson is a little too high at 17.
I think Mary J.
I actually think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I think Mary J.
and Janet to be top 20. I think it's pretty fair.
But we've got straws there too, also at this point. Top 20, yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I could even. I would put Janet or Mary J. I'd swap out Janet or Mary J. with R. Kelly. I know that.
Oh, no, but you said it's using your feelings. That's why.
No. I'm not. It has nothing to do with my feelings. Listen. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Like I said, I've never been the biggest fan of R. Kelly, but at the same time, I don't allow myself to personally. I can actually say that it's because I just legitimately just didn't like the music in and of itself. I like, you know what I'm saying? It just seemed really, and it sounds like I'm like making fun of the people who like his music or whatever, but it just seemed really pedestrian. You know what I'm saying? Like songs like a song like When a Woman's Fed Up is a really interesting concept. But just from a lyrical standpoint, it's just too like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like I took my son and my nephew to the barber a few weeks ago, and in North Carolina, and we had some extremely ignorant conversations with some of the people in that barbershop. And that to me is like R. Kelly's music. R. Kelly's music is like,
it's ghetto as shit.
Exactly. It's just, you know, it's ghetto as shit. Exactly. It's just
there you go. Sets you up good.
Yeah, it's their hood nigga classics. You know what I'm saying?
That is fair. I mean,
I said you don't have to, Matthew. There you go.
Exactly. Like you think about you know, but I think about someone like a Donald Jones. Like Donald Jones, I
More
really
classier.
he's the classiest fuckboy in the history of R&B music, because it's just like
I know he said that.
seriously, he has a very classy way of
Yeah.
saying the most niggerish, most abhorrent things.
But it's doing
You
it
know
in a
what
very
I'm
classy
saying?
way.
He's doing it very classy. Like Where I Want to Be is a immaculate song, but it's one of the worst sentiments, the worst things you could possibly say to a woman ever when you're breaking up with them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, even though the sentiment of it seems like it's honorable, but the fact that you even, it's kind of like, how could you even fix your face to say that out loud? It's one thing to think it in your head, but to say it out loud, or a song like This Love, where you're trying to get a woman to cheat on her husband, or you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, but he just is so classy with it. You know what I'm saying? R. Kelly was just crude when it came to it.
Disgusting.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. It's just, I mean, look, I don't knock people that enjoy it, and there are things that by him that I did enjoy it, you know, when they came out. Like, I can't lie, I did like the Chocolate Factory album, but at the same time, R. Kelly's music, like I said, it's just very pedestrian. It's very,
I get it. I totally get it. I agree with you.
You know, it's very simplistic, almost. It's almost
It's more
like,
fast food than actual like diner.
Like I'll get in trouble for saying this, but it's the R&B is remedial when it comes to R. Kelly. You know what I'm saying? Like,
bro, he almost died last week, man. We shit on this guy now.
Yeah, look, man, he's where he is because of the things that he did. You know what I'm saying?
Moron,
so
that's why.
So I'm not gonna.
I'm with you. I agree with 100%.
I'm not gonna try to like say whatever. Like, look,
the thing
whatever
is,
happens to him,
I like his music though. I do agree with 100% what you're saying though. I do agree with 100% what you're saying. It is remedial as well.
So final question from me, guys, if you don't mind.
Right before we go.
Yeah, I'm gonna pivot to Chris Brown at number 26.
Okay.
Fair, foul, like, what do y'all think? My take on it, real quick, is that he doesn't have a classic album to his name, so he's way too high.
Yeah, but he has classic songs, I guess. Now, in the era of streaming,
classics.
I mean,
I'm
not a fan of. I'm not necessarily like. Okay, let me rephrase that. I like Chris Brown. He's a great entertainer, possibly the greatest entertainer today living. However, like, I don't listen to his music regularly, so I don't know many of his songs, so I can't really speak on that. But there are people who do swear by Chris Brown and some of the songs he popularized for this era. So I'll leave it at that more than anything else.
Okay. Here's what I'll say about.
Go ahead.
Here's what I'll say, and this is this last thing before we close. In terms of him being at 26, I guess that's fair for him because here's what I'll say. Chris Brown does have the longevity that warrants him being number 26 on that list.
So 20 years now.
Yeah. I mean, Run It came out in 2005.
Yep.
So it's 2025, and he's about to do a stadium tour. So, you know, he does have the longevity, in spite of like the egregious, you know, things he's been accused of, and some things that we know for sure he did. And I'm not talking about just the Rihanna thing. You know what I'm saying? It's a habitual, you know, list of things which he doesn't even understand. Yeah, which is why it becomes hard to listen to him, because he's so ignorant. But my whole thing is that you're right, Chris. Chris Brown, he doesn't have what we would call a classic album. There's no album of his that he's put out that you could say that you would hold up. Because to me, a classic album, they go next to each other. You know, you might like one more than another, but they're all in the Hall of Fame, so they're all of equal value in some way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying? Like a What's Going On and a Giant Steps, they don't sound anything like each other, but they're both classic records, and they belong with each other, just like Low End Theory and Blood Sugar Sex Magic belong next to each other because they're both classic records. Chris Brown has never made a record like that, and he never will as long as he continues to do this thing where he puts 20, 30, 40, 50 tracks on an album. I understand why he's doing it from a monetary standpoint, because a lot of artists do that. SZA is another person that does that because they're trying to get their money up because of streaming. But at the end of the day, people are judged most by their albums. When you have an artist that's been around for a long time, that's when people really start to judge.
But will that be the case in?
Thank you.
But will that be the case in, say, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, in the era of streaming?
I still think that, when it comes to fans, I think that people will still rank him high when it comes to his material in terms and just his ability to perform. People really enjoy him as a performer, and I think that carries him. I think in 10 years from now, he'll probably be at a place close to where R. Kelly is, because I think that because of the fact that he, there's this documentary about him, about his abuse and alleged abuse. And then, so that ultimately is always going to catch up with people, particularly today. Because if you don't atone, or if you feel like you're not doing anything wrong, it's going to catch up with you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with R. Kelly. That's what's happening with Diddy right now. That's what happened to Harvey Weinstein. They all thought that they were invincible, and they didn't see the error of their ways, and then it caught up with them. And that's what's going to happen with him. And sure, there'll be people who still will champion him, just like there are people who still champion R. Kelly and all these other people. But I think that, to me and to people like you, like you two, bodies of work are always going to be how we separate the great people from the truly legendary people. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Like it's like in the NBA. Like, you have your Hall of Famers, you have your superstars, and you have your really, really good guys that you remember, but they're not like Hall of Famer guys,
Right.
And that's what makes Chris Brown at 26 the most frustrating part of this, is that when it comes to body of work, I still think he has the potential to make a great album, but he's got to lock in and get the right producer to bring it out of him. So I've always thought that if he either linked up with Raphael Sadiq or Jamin Lewis, they could get a 10-song album out of Chris Brown and make it his best work. They could pull that out of him. So that's what's so frustrating.
I would even go smaller than that. Like, I feel like there's a lot of dope material that comes out by like a lot of these pop artists that Chris Brown could, like Charlie Puth. Like if Chris Brown had a song like Attention,
that song's amazing,
or something like that.
Yeah,
I think that would, that kind of material, I think that would be dope for him.
I mean, I think he actually the remix that he did with Leon Thomas for Mutt, I think he sounds great on it.
Trash.
Oh, you don't like it?
No, I don't like the Leon Thomas remix with Chris. I think it was really unnecessary, because he took away from what makes that song great, which is the melody. The pre-chorus that I let my guard down for you. The fact that the rhythm of that is what makes that song leading into the chorus sound strong. Chris Brown took away from that because he just kind of was going all over the place. I would have rather if him just did a song, just him and no Leon on it, and just redo it. Gotcha. I think that he took away from the song with the remix, but at the same time, it's number 12 on the charts now after almost a year. So
something's working.
So and as I'm looking at the criteria, there's 6 categories, and the only areas that I can like reasonably give it to Chris Brown are career longevity, industry achievements, and then enduring generational cultural impact. So that's half the list. But based on law of averages, if you're at 50%, then you should not be number 26 on this list. The vocal prowess, he's an average at best singer. He sounds good on some songs, but he's not up there with Mike, Prince, Marvin, Luther, or even R. Kelly for that matter. Body of work, he has a lot of good songs that he's done. He's got a lot of good features. To me, like, he's a great feature artist. But that to me, like we were talking about, where's his Miseducation of Lauryn Hill? Where's his Purple Rain moment? He doesn't have that. So to me, that brings him out of the conversation.
He doesn't have a dangerous one out loud. So I mean,
dangerous like. And then when it comes to game-changing influence, what exactly? Like, I get that he's incredibly gifted when it comes to like performing on stage and doing artwork, rapping. Like I get he could do a lot of things. And you ask Tank thinks that Chris Brown's the greatest of all time, but when it comes,
I saw that interview with Chris last year,
which was nasty work,
trash.
But honestly, I mean, if the both of you. I'm open to what you guys have to say. What game-changing influence has Chris Brown brought since he joined, or since he came into the scene back in 2005?
Okay.
So
nothing stood out. He's a great entertainer. That's what
yes, great entertainer. And to me, like he's even somebody I think he could put on like a great Super Bowl halftime show if he was given an opportunity. But based on this criteria, I think number 26 is way too high for him. But it is frustrating because, like, I think he has the potential to make a classic album. You just got to link up with the right people.
Yeah. Well, I got to get going, guys.
Yeah, same here.
But this is
go ahead. Go ahead, plug guys real quick.
Just real quick. Just read my Substack, Define Media, headphoneaddict.substack.com, and subscribe. Chris,
you want to plug?
Quick plug. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at CHRISLACY0215. As Matthew and EJ mentioned, my latest piece I've done is History 30. If you love it, great. Share it with anybody that you want. But there's more on the way. More on the way of good things to come. So
good job as always, guys. That's great. We'll be back next month. We'll do the our New Jack Swing draft. Looking out for that. Song draft, I say. Looking out for that.
Thanks for having me on.
Good job, guys.